Thank you for joining us for a peek at the new shelf. Queens of the Crusades, England's Medieval Queens by Allison Weir. Published by Ballentine Books, a division of Penguin Random House. Read by Alicia Davis. Part 1. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen of Henry II. Chapter 1. An exceedingly shrewd and clever woman. In 1115, William IX conceived a violent passion for Auberge de l'Île Bouchard, aptly nicknamed Danger Rosa. She was the wife of his vassal Amaury de Rochefoucauld, Viscount of Châtellerault, and had 5 children, Hugues, Raoul, who would marry the heiress of Fay and become one of Eleanor of Aquitaine's chief advisors, Aynor, Aimable, and Aoi. William adopted Danger Rosa and bore her off to his palace at Poitiers, where he installed her in the newly built Maubergeon Tower, which lent her other nickname, La Maubergeon. When the Duchess, William IX's wife, returned from a visit to Toulouse, she was shocked to find her husband living in open adultery and begged the papal legate to remonstrate with him, but it was useless. Even excommunication had no effect. Duchess Philippa retired in grief to Fontevraud, where she died in 1118. Eleanor of Aquitaine was damned even before she was born by her grandfather's detestable adultery, which was said to taint her blood with licentiousness. In 1121, William IX's son and heir married Danger Rosa's daughter, Aynor. The future Duke William X was tall, broad, and robust, with a quarrelsome nature. Little is known about Aynor. Her first child, the daughter who became known to history as Eleanor of Aquitaine, was probably born in 1123 or 24. A genealogy of the Dukes of Aquitaine, made in Limoges in the late 13th century, stated, in 1136, on the 5th Ides of April, William X, Count of Poitou and Duke of Aquitaine, died at St. James in Galicia, leaving his only daughter named Eleanor, aged 13 years. This is a late source, and William IX actually died in 1137, but the genealogy is based on the contemporary chronicle of the knowledgeable Geoffrey de Vigeois. Eleanor's place of birth is not recorded. Her name was a pun on the Latin Alia Aynor, the other Aynor, to differentiate her from her mother. It would later be said that it was an amalgam of pure Ali and gold or, but that was written with the benefit of hindsight. Aynor bore William X's 2 other children, Elith, who later called herself Petronia, and William Aigret. William X's brief reign was marred by strife with his vassals and quarrels with the church, but the court at Poitiers remained an important cultural center. The new duke patronized the troubadours Marcavroux and Cercamont, and perhaps the Welshman Bledry, who may have told the courtiers some very early tales of King Arthur. William also patronized Fontevraud and other religious houses, displaying an innate piety that probably influenced the upbringing of his children, for it is clear that Eleanor's faith was the guiding principle of her life. Her name first appears in contemporary records in July 1129, when she, her parents, and her brother witnessed a charter granting privileges to the Abbey of Monteneuf. Each inscribed a cross by their name, while the infant, William Aigret, made a print with a finger dipped in ink. In March 1130, the Duchess and her children took up a residence at William X's hunting lodge at Thomont on the coast of Poitou. Aynor and William Aigret died there soon afterward, leaving Eleanor as her father's heiress presumptive. At the age of 6, she was old enough to realize that she was a very important little girl, the most important in Christendom. Eleanor enjoyed a privileged girlhood, brought up in delicacy and reared with abundance of all delights, living in the bosom of wealth, according to the chronicler Richard Le Poitevin. She grew up speaking Poitevin, also knew French and some Latin. Later, she would master the Norman French that was spoken at her second husband's court, but she would never learn English. Like all feudal courts, William X was itinerant, and Eleanor traveled with him. His chief seat, and later hers, was the ancient palace of Poitiers, dating from the 9th century, sited on the banks of the river Clain. It was surrounded by beautiful gardens and a moat. In the 10th century, William V had erected a great hall, which survives today, much altered, and is known colloquially as the Hall of Lost Footsteps. The ducal apartments were in the imposing Mauverjon Tower. Eleanor also spent time in the Ombriere Palace at Bordeaux, a tall keep known as the Crossbowman, which was set in courtyards with tile fountains and beautiful semi-tropical gardens. Bordeaux was surrounded by a Roman wall, beyond which stood another residence used by the ducal family, the Tutelle Palace. The education of women was generally considered unimportant. Unusually, Eleanor received a formal education in history, arithmetic, Latin, and literacy skills. The troubadour Bertrand de Born, who addressed chansons to her, commented, "They were not unknown to her, for she can read." A contemporary poet, Benoit de Saint-Maur, called her one in whom all knowledge abounds. It is possible that Eleanor received some education at Fontevraud, as two of her children later did. That she shared her grandfather's enjoyment of literature and poetry can be inferred from her later patronage of troubadours, such as Bernard de Ventadour, Arnaud Guillem de Marsan, and Rigaud de Barbesieux. Yet there is little evidence to connect her to any others, which suggests that the extent of her patronage has been overstated. Eleanor had wit and welcoming manner. Like her female ancestors, she was strong-willed, independent-minded, intelligent, sophisticated, and impetuous. She was blessed with great energy, vitality, and robust health. She enjoyed hunting and hawking, riding astride as women usually did before the late 14th century, and kept royal gerfalcons at her hunting lodge at Talmont. Growing up in a sophisticated and highly civilized court, she developed a taste for luxury and refinement. Above all, she conceived a great love for ancestral domains. Throughout her life, they would always be her first priority. All contemporary sources agree that she was beautiful. In an age in which chroniclers invariably describe royal and noble ladies as fair, their praise of her sounds genuinely enthusiastic. Even when she was old, the chronicler Richard of Devizes described her as beautiful. No one, however, left an actual description of her. Her tomb effigy shows a tall, large-boned woman, but may not be an accurate representation. The contemporary ideal of beauty was the blue-eyed blonde, and several historians have suggested that the chroniclers would not have praised Eleanor so highly if she had not conformed to it. Yet she perhaps had auburn hair, as the crowned lady in a mural in the church of Sainte-Radegonde in Chinon depicts her. She enjoyed dressing elegantly in fine clothes, often silk embroidered in gold thread, famous opus Anglicanum, English work. She loved jewelry, amassing many pieces during her life, including jewel circlets to hold in place the veils that married women wore in the 12th and 13th centuries. In a martial world, it was not considered practical or fitting for a woman to rule or feudal state or wield dominion over men. It was imperative that a strong and powerful husband be found for Eleanor to rule in her name.